bedwetting. We can have anxiety disorders. We can have learning disorders. We can have attention deficit deficit hyperactivity disorder. We can have anxiety, depression. We can even have some developmental disorders, you know, which can be either delay in development when, you know, a child is disturbed, or even a regression in already achieved milestones. So the things that the child has been able to acquire, suddenly the child is losing those skills. You know, it can be a sign. Then children, especially older children and adolescents, can have problems with drug and substance use. They can be dependent on things like the substances, and even other things like gambling, like internet addiction, pornography addiction. You know, these are all behavioral problems. Then children also can have post-traumatic stress disorder, where they go through trauma, and then they have like an activation of their system, so that it's difficult for them to heal from the trauma, or they live in constant anticipation and fear of the trauma. That is a post-traumatic stress disorder. So the behavioral children and the behavioral problems that we can have in children can be very wide and varied. But yes, and then you know, interestingly, we said again that all mental health problems that we see in adults actually have developed 50% of time in children before they are 18.
Wow.
So yes, for 50% of the adult mental health problem we see started when they were children. Yeah.
It's just that people don't know, and people don't look out for it.
Yes, people miss them out.
Okay, in recent times, people have been complaining, even in adults, that psychological issues are getting worse with the way the country is and all that. And I think if adults are being affected, children surely are being affected. Mrs. Namu, what has been your experience?
Well, some of the time,
with children and young people and psychological issues?
Okay, the parents are affected psychologically, and so they take it on the children. A father who normally would not shout before, now because he's dealing with more expenses and the money is not there, he comes home,
and now no cash, Even if you have money in the bank, you can't get the cash.
He gets angry with everybody, and the children begin to withdraw, because the children are different. Children are different. They have different temperaments. Some children can accommodate shouting, some cannot. And when they begin to shout like that, or they begin to even beat them the way they were not used to, so many things are going wrong in the house. Before, they were not used to see their parent fighting. Suddenly, mommy and daddy are quarreling and fighting over irrelevant things that they don't even understand. And then the thing begins to take a toll on the children. It can affect them mentally and psychologically. And you see them begin to misbehave. And of course, like she said, post-traumatic disorder. Some children are exposed to abuse by, you know, adults in their homes that the parents accommodated and thought they were friends of the family. You know, they accommodated them in their homes.
You know, they were wolves in sheep clothing.
Not knowing that they were taking advantage of their children. So some of these issues are there, and they affect the children mentally.
And you think they are getting worse?
They are getting worse, actually, yes.
Anna, you think they are getting worse?
Yes, I think they are. I think they are.
Yeah, okay. So we're raising these issues so that parents are more aware and try to help their children as much as they can to be in a good place with issues, psychological issues. So we had promised the last time we were here that we're going to, this time when we come again, to talk about how to prevent psychological issues from the home front, the school, and all that, or how to even detect early and solve it as early as possible. So, Anna, let's start with you again. What can parents do? Or what should parents do? Because sometimes it's not enough to hear, but what should they do? It's not like it's optional. What should parents do to help their kids?
Yeah, I think there is a lot, because we believe that whenever you see a psychologically disturbed child, in like 90% of the cases, you can solve their problems addressing the parents.
Wow.
So, yes.
So parents have a big role to play.
So parents have a big role. And I want us to look at it from, you know, from when the child is in the womb. You know, when a mother is pregnant, she needs to pay attention to her nutrition. She needs to pay attention to the things that she shouldn't take, like alcohol and drugs of abuse, because these things tend to affect, you know, the development of the brain, which can predispose children to these problems. Then the mother needs to also attend antenatal care. Pay attention when you're ill, get to the hospital and get treated. There are some of these illnesses that might not appear very severe in the mother, but then they can affect the development of the child. So go for antenatal, take your routine antenatal care medication, go to the hospital and deliver, and there is nothing like being
an expert.
Hebrew woman delivery. When baby is not coming, please lie down and have your CS. There is nothing wrong with that, because sometimes when you know, difficult labor, difficult deliveries, you know, they cause trauma to the head, and you know, the head of the child is still very tender, and so it can injure the brain. So things like that, we should pay attention to that. Then when we deliver these children, we should also not play with exclusive breastfeeding if there is no contraindication. That means there is nothing that is stopping the mother from breastfeeding the child. She should breastfeed her child exclusively. And then when the child begins to feed on other food, she should also pay attention to the nutrition of the child. It's very important. Then it's important for the mother, most especially, to also take care of her mental health, because a mother who is not psychologically balanced will most likely have children who are not psychologically balanced. So if you have postpartum blues, postpartum depression, don't feel ashamed, just step forward and get treated, because if you don't get treated, not only are you suffering, your child also suffers, because postpartum depression affects, you know, the bonding, mother to child bonding. And so the child can have issues there, and then it can predispose to having attachment disorders and other
let me stop you on that postpartum depression and psychosis issues, so that we don't forget. So sometimes people have those problems, but maybe they don't identify it in themselves that they have problems. So those around, what can they do? You know, see a mother has problems after delivery. What can people around do? Relatives and then neighbors, because sometimes neighbors see, but they wonder whether they should say something. So what can they do?
I think the first thing is we need to empathize with these women. Not every woman, you know, research has shown that 50% of women who deliver will have postpartum blues, where they don't feel particularly excited, they are teary, they are irritable. So when you see a mother not excited that she gave birth, please don't look down on her and feel something is wrong with her, you know, or begin to make her feel less of a person, less of a Christian. These are things that happen because of the hormonal changes that happen at the level of the brain. So we need to empathize. We need to make it appear that, look, there is nothing wrong with you. You can talk about these things, because sometimes they feel anxious, sometimes they feel tense. In postpartum depression, women can actually feel suicidal. They might feel homicidal. That means they feel like killing their child because they feel something is wrong with the child, or sometimes they even, it appears as if the child is changing. Maybe an imposter has taken over the child. These are real experiences that happen in postpartum depression, and for the woman, it is terrible. It is terribly frightening for her, and so she is struggling to find ways of expressing, because she believes that people would not understand her. Now, if we stand on the side of, look, you're a woman, you should rejoice because you have given birth. Do you know how many women are looking for the fruits of the womb? You know, things like that. It makes them to further recoil, and then they are unable to take care. They are unable to talk. So we need to empathize. Then we need to help them, because most of the times they are unable to sleep, they are unable to feed well. You know, the breastfeeding process is stressful, you know, and they're just tired. So at such situations, you need to just encourage them, help them take care of the baby as much as, you know, you can. And then encourage them to seek help. Yes, it's good to pray. You pray for them. You pray with them, but don't stress them so much with that. You know, there are times that you need to be the person who is like standing in the gap for that person.
So that's not the time to say they should join you in night vigil.
No, that's not the
prayer.
time. You know, you just add to their stress and they can break down further. So we need to encourage them to seek help. We need to make it normal. Seeing a psychiatrist, seeing a psychologist doesn't really mean you're an abnormal person. Having postpartum depression is one of those things that can happen to anybody. I had postpartum blues. It did not progress to postpartum depression, thank God. But if it did,
I had to. After my first child, I think by the third day I broke down. I was wailing and weeping.
Yes,
and my husband was like, "What's
wrong?" It happens.
I'd had it.
Yeah, so we had postpartum blues. If you have postpartum blues, please talk to somebody about it. Feel no shame.
So, but also still on this postpartum thing, I think people should understand that women need support. I know maybe in our native communities, that support seemed to have been there, but now that people are living in the towns, they are no more close to home, they are left alone. So like for Christians now in the Christian community, maybe Mrs. Namo, you say something there. What can we do to help pregnant women and women who have just had babies especially? From the Women's Fellowship in the church, what can we do to help our fellow sisters who just had babies and they are all at risk of having this postpartum blues and postpartum depression, more especially when they have twins. Everybody's rejoicing about twins, triplets, quadruplets. I think the risk increases.
Yeah.
So what can we do to help?
You know, we lay emphasis on women helping women. What about the men? Because you have a wife who just gave birth and you just left her. She needs you at that point. You need to, I think there's a need for us to educate the men that you have to stay by this woman. You have to understand that you need to help her to do some things. You need to be there to encourage her. Even if she's not interested in the thing, you need to be there to pat her on the back and tell her this will pass. You know, the men too needs to be carried along.
Yeah, but somebody
much as we want the church
to help.
You know, to help.
But somebody told me that he's afraid of newborn, and I've heard a few men say that they don't know when they see newborn babies, they run away. They can't stand it. They can't stay around newborn babies. And
but you love children.
They are scared of newborn babies.
But they love children
when they are older.
If you,
but it's a learned skill.
Yeah.
Nobody was born knowing how
they are
to
afraid.
take care.
They're afraid of them.
Nobody was born taking care of children or knowing how. Even for the woman, she learns. When you give birth to your first child, you learn.
Yeah.
So the men should learn alongside their wives.
They should learn to be there. And then the women too. Please don't be a loner as a woman. Don't come up and say, I don't like mixing with people. You mix with people because that's where you can find help in case there is a problem. Because as much as we want the women in the church to help, if you don't come out for help, nobody is going to help you. You don't belong to any group. You don't associate with anybody. You come to church on Sunday before the church is saying amen, you are running away. Nobody seems to understand what you are going through. But when you mix with women, you know, you are relating with them, you are involved in the things they are doing. The day you are not there, people will ask questions. What is wrong with you? Are you okay? And then, you know, some women who have gone through what you have gone through can now begin to help you. So women, please, let's be there for our fellow women, but also let the men stand up to their yes. I wanted to say also that one of the ways we can manage this mental health is to create a healthy home environment. See, if we want to bring up healthy children, the home itself has to be healthy. A home where there is no love between the husband and the wife. There is no they cannot see, the love is not tangible. The children will not enjoy being in that home. When they come, they see, it's not because you're not fighting. Okay, me and my wife, we don't fight. But there's a way the home will look, you know, the atmosphere is not friendly. Everybody is on his own. The man is forming man. When he comes, he just glues to the TV or to the newspaper. Now there is phone. He glues to the phone. The woman is doing all the chores in the house. The man is not helping in doing anything. And then the children are watching and wondering what kind of home is this. Even when you now bring your boys to come and learn some of these things, they want to learn, but they are saying, well, why is daddy so out of the way in this matter? So we need to know that we are building a home where we want to bring up children. and these children are supposed to be healthy children. So if we want to bring up healthy children, we have to first create a healthy home.
Okay. Yeah, that's important. Anna, back to you.
Yeah, so as we were saying, so after that initial time of birth, you know, as the child grows up, she has talked about healthy home environments, which I will not overflog. But again, now back to the children, how we raise the children is very, very important. You know, these days, we are overprotective of children. And as a result of that, we are now having teenagers, adolescents who are not resilient at all. You know, house helps do everything. Our children don't know how to wash. They don't know how to mop. They don't know how to, they don't know the road to the market. You know, they are in SS3. They don't know how to cross the roads.
Wow.
You know, they don't know how to do anything for themselves. And by the time, and these days, you know, we send children to school so early. A lot of times, by the time they are 15, 16, they are finding themselves in the university. And they are still children, no life skills. Little stress, they are breaking down, they are suicidal, you know, and things like that. So we need to put a balance between comfort and then teaching our children life skills. Very important.
And I think in that, in trying to get them to be resilient, I think also we shouldn't try to shield them too much. Parents also don't want their children to have anything, friends, but also not wanting any bad thing, in quotes, to happen to them. So any stress in life, you'll be protecting. If instead of your child to fail an exam, you rather bribe the teacher. Bribe, you know, to make the child happy, or just doing silly things to make sure that your child does not suffer. I don't want my children to suffer the way I suffered. So you go overboard to make sure that they have no, as we say in Nigeria, they have no skin pain, and it doesn't let them develop resilience because life is tough. Life is tough.
Life outside your home is really tough.
And that's the real life.
That's real life. The street is not a walk in the park. The street is tough. So if you shield these children, so there are some adult children who cannot even manage themselves outside. They start working and they are afraid to go to the office because as children they were shielded from everything. They went to private. There are private and there are private. They went to private primary school, private primary school, private secondary school, private university, where they are shielded from everything life. So suddenly they finish university and they are supposed to be working. And they are going to meet with children who came from public school. They're going to meet with children who came from the ordinary private school, and they are supposed to mix together.
And then your boss in the office scolds you
and you start crying. You know, your boss tells
corrects you
and you start crying. Or your boss screams at you and you just say, I don't want to work in that office again. You will work, because it has to start from home. You know, we should learn to help these children to be involved in fact, take them to the market. I remember at a point in the house, I told the children, I won't pack food for you to take to the school anymore. There's a canteen in school, a normal, regular canteen in school. I give you money. Go and buy your things yourself. A fellow teacher called me and said, you are spoiling your children. You are giving them money. I said, how will they learn to buy things themselves? They are children. Let them learn to buy things and give account to me. And they started learning it. You know, eventually I saw they would say, give me money, I want to go and buy this, I want to go and buy this. But I make them to keep account of what they are doing. So it's part of training. So that when they are exposed to one sudden thing, it won't completely break them down.
Okay, Anna, back to you. Maybe you make one or two more points before we go on break.
Okay, so another thing is we need to get involved in our children's life. You know, these days you find out that both parents are working and probably working hard and things like that. But then I have seen a lot of very interesting research that looked into, you know, involvement in children's lives. And I saw one that showed that parents that did homework with their children, those children were less likely to go into drug abuse than parents that didn't. They just looked at that factor, and it was very significantly associated with drug addiction. So yes, it is good to have lesson teachers. Yes, it is good to have other people to help, but we need to get involved in our children's life. We need to find a balance into, you know, we have different seasons of life. Of course, when your children are still young, there are things that you might not be able to benefit from as when your children are older. So when they need that, we need to get involved in their lives. We need to get involved in who their friends are. You know, sometimes, you know, at the risk, okay, maybe we just want to be comfortable, so we prefer to just shut them, you know, in the house and things like that. But the better way of doing it is to know who your friends' children are. Take them to their friends. House. Invite the friends to come over to your own house and cook for them. Do whatever it is that you can do for them, so that you know the kind of people that your own children are engaging with. You know, that is very, very important. We need to get involved. We need to see what they are reading. We need to watch things with them, you know, whether it's a TV program or whatever. Just create a time. Sit down with them once in a while, watch these things together with, have family times, go out, play games and do things like that. It really helps, you know, in giving them a sense of, well, I am important. You know, it helps their self-esteem than when parents just leave these children to be totally on their own and just providing everything they need. You know, sometimes we feel if we provide the money, we provide the resources, we provide helps, we provide lesson teachers, we are doing well. But these children actually need us. They want us to be involved in their lives. They want us to be the ones to raise them. They want us to be the ones, you know, to correct them. Those that the parents don't really correct grow up feeling, you know, everything is permissible, and so they go ahead doing that.
I think this being available with your children, doing things with them, watching what they watch. Yes, it may be childish to you, but it's good to sit down and watch. I remember when my first child was still very, my first two children, they were still small, and I got cartoon for them. That particular one, usually I try to watch before I give them to her, but this time I didn't watch. I just gave it to them, and they put it on. But on second thought, I said, let me sit in with them and watch. It was supposed cartoon character. But my goodness, I sat down to watch, and it was porn. It was pornography. In cartoon, it was cartoon, but cartoon characters, but it was pornography.
See?
I shouted. I switched off. I removed. I apologized to them. I said, please, 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 this is wrong. This is, you know, broke the CD and threw away. But I was like, after this, never again. Anything I watch first, and even if I don't watch, I'll sit down and make sure I watch it with them, so that I know what they are watching, instead of exposing them to something.
And when you do that over time, the children learn to make very good choices.
Yes.
With time, even if you come as an outsider and slot in something that is wrong, the children will say,
and when visitors come to my house and even go to stations that we don't watch, they say, Mommy said, we don't watch this in this house. My children say that. And I also noticed when they were younger, sometimes they used to say, Mommy, come and join us and watch. Come on. I said, but I've watched it before. I said, come and join us again. So they, as you said, the children like us to be around them, whatever they are doing. So,
and even the older children, I wanted to say, you know, we feel the adolescents, they prefer to be in their room and things like that, but they're actually yearning for you to involve them in activities.
In their room, even.
You know, I try to read something with my adolescent son, you know, and I'm not too consistent, but whenever I can, we read through books, we discuss,
so
we take chapters, we discuss. It's usually, for him, I have discovered, it's not usually about the book, but the fact that after the book, there is going to be a conversation. Okay, so what do you think about this? What do you think about this? Is there something you want to tell me? You know, and we get to talk. And I see that he looks forward to, you know, those times that we can sit down, basically because he can bear his mind, you know, at those times. So as we do with the children, we should also not ignore our adolescents.
Okay. So viewers, we'll go on break, and when we come back, our phone lines will open up so that you could phone in to ask questions. We'll still dwell a bit more about making time for our kids. It's a sacrifice we need to make, and God expects us to do the best we can to raise these children properly. So we'll go on break now, and when we come back, we'll continue discussing how to help our children with their psychological issues, and the phone lines will be open. So see you right after the break. So welcome back, viewers, again from the break. We've been right here in the living room on Equa TV talking about dealing with psychological issues in children. And with me discussing this issue, as they say, extensively, is Mrs. Ibe Namo and Dr. Anna Gyang, who have been talking about this. So before we went on break, we were talking about the fact that we needed to spend more time with our children. And it requires sacrifice. It requires sacrifice to be able to talk with our kids, both the young ones and the older ones, being available to them. And to also remind you that our phone line, the number is there on the screen, so you can call in or send messages to our Facebook page. Even for the Facebook page, even if we don't answer you today, we'll answer you next time we come around, or we'll answer you live when we get to the Facebook page. So, Dr. Gyang, back to you again about spending time with our older children and the sacrifice that needs to be made.
Yeah. So we need to do things together. We need to, when we're doing house chores, let's involve them in house chores. We need to cook, you know, no matter how rich you are, and no matter the amount of helps you have or housekeepers you have, I think your children want to eat what you have prepared yourself. You know, it's special to them, and you know, sometimes you involve them in that, and it gives you opportunity to talk. It gives you opportunity to bond. It gives you opportunity to hear what is going on in their heads, you know, to gently guide and correct them, especially, you know, if they are older. Then for, you know, all children need the attention of both parents, you know, whether they're girls or boys. And for the girls, let the fathers not leave it to the women, you know. They are women, so they should deal with women issues. A lot of the self-esteem problems we have in adolescents and maybe older ladies is that they never experience or they don't perceive love from their fathers. So therefore, whenever anybody comes with any kind of confession of love, they easily fall to that because they really do not have that, you know, the only I love you they hear is from other boys, not from their fathers. And the feeling of being important, being loved, being heard, being cared for that they have from a man is probably from one boyfriend somewhere. So fathers need to be very involved in their female children's life, just as they are involved, you know, in their male children's life.
Just as they should be involved, because some are not involved in any of them.
Oh, okay.
So, Mrs. Namo, what are ways that fathers can be involved in their daughters' lives and in their sons' lives specifically? Because that seems to be an issue. Many fathers don't seem to be involved, and suddenly as adults, they want their children to be close to them. I don't know how they expect that to happen. So what can fathers do? Fathers out there, what can you tell them?
I started something when my daughter turned 10. I took her out on outing. We went, sat together, we ate, and I asked her questions, and I told her to ask me questions. And she started, I was surprised the kinds of questions she was asking. So when I came back from the outing, I told my husband, take this girl out. He said, why? I'm like, she's your daughter. Take her out. He never did until he took all of us out. But I feel like it is something, it's very important. If as a father, you take your girl out and listen to her talk. Talk to her about boys, talk to her about, you know, issues like that. This issue of sexuality is, you can discuss it, you know, the little you know with the girl. And the boys,
at least for her to hear it from the male point of view.
You know, you know what you boys want from, what men want from women. If you can come down to the level of your daughter to tell her what she should expect from men and what she should take and what she should reject.
And how to identify
and
fake people.
How to identify what is fake. You know, it will help the girl growing up, you know. A lady once told me that the first time a boy approached her and told her, I love you, say, my father told me.
Yeah.
So it wasn't excited.
It's not a new thing, but if the first time, like she said, the girl is hearing I love you is from a male, she will listen to anything the male has to say because that's the first time. So take these children out, talk to them about love. Love is not a sin. It is the approach to love most times that becomes a sin. So if you can discuss the issue of love, you know, even from how Jesus loved us and gave himself to us and how much you love them as their father, you talked to them. And once in a while, I visit my children in their rooms because I know that when they are adolescent, they like to confine themselves to the room. I go to the boys' room when I knock.
I go to the room too and sit on the bed.
When I knock on the door and I open the door, they will like, I say, I came to see you. Say, any problem? I say, no problem. I just came to see you. Let it not be that the only time you go to their room is when you are going to give them instructions or when you are going to tell them what they did wrong. Just go inside your girl's room, your boy's room, sit on their bed and gist and stay there. You know,
and let them also come to your room.
One elderly man told me that there was a time when his children were like teenagers, almost all of them. He brought them, said, today we are all sleeping together in the same room. And they all slept together in the same room. And they gisted throughout the night. It's a way of bonding. So there are several ways, several steps you can eat with them. You know, sometimes you don't like what they eat. Maybe you should just taste it and see what they are eating.
Indomie.
The Indomie thing. But when you always shut them out, and the only time, in fact, some fathers don't even call their children by name. Hey, you, who goes there? Who goes there is not their name, please. Stop using such slangs for your children. Call them by their name, even if you have to give them instruction. Don't wait until somebody from outside come and tell you, I saw your son with one boy. I don't think that boy is a good boy that your son should be following. Which means you don't even know any of your son's friends. Let them invite these boys and girls to their house. Let them, like she said, cook for them. Let fellowship with your children's friends because it helps you to know, help them to talk with you. And as they are discussing, they are using their youthful slangs. I had to learn some of the slang and I use it. And there was a time I used the slang for them. I say, hey, mommy. Hey. You know, so they enjoy this thing. You might think that I don't have time. When the issues happen, you will find time. When they call you tomorrow and say your son was caught in drugs, that time you didn't have, you will find it by force. So don't wait for that time. You create time to be with them. Create time to follow them. You don't expect your children to go for fellowship when you don't go for fellowship. Carry them with you. Let us go together. In fact, if it is possible, visit their teenage fellowship. Visit their youth fellowship. Just say, I want to come and see what you people are discussing. It's not like you are spying on them. It's like you want them to feel that you are part of this system. It might not be, it doesn't have to be every day. Maybe once in a year or once in 2, 3, 4, 5 months. Let them just know that you love what they are doing and you are part of it. Discuss issues like their career. Do you have a boyfriend? I'm not going to scold you if you have one. Let me know about it. I know one of my girls discussed about boyfriend with me, issues about boyfriend. In fact, there was one of them when the boy called, she put it on speaker, and the boy, she was saying, Mommy, So I sat down there. The boy was expressing love, how much he cannot sleep because of her. I was listening and I was laughing, you know. And she, if I wasn't friendly with her, she couldn't have come to that point, you know. But when you hear that a boy is pursuing your girl, you start saying, the day you get pregnant in this house, I will kill you. How many of you will actually kill the girl when she gets pregnant? It's all an empty threat. And eventually they will know that the threat is empty. And they will go ahead and do it. So let's bond with them. Let's find time to be involved in their lives.
Okay, thank you for that. So Anna, back to you again. Other points, issues.
Yeah.
Parents, we are loading you today, so please, I hope we're taking notes.
Another thing that is very important is that we need to protect our children from the media. Whether it's social media, it's print media, is whatever kind of things that they watch on television, you know, and things like that. Now, I would want to probably just explain something. You know, research has shown that the last part of the brain to be developed is the frontal part. That's the part that is just covered by our forehead. And that is the part of the brain that is responsible for planning, for organization, for inhibiting impulses. That is not everything that comes up in your mind that you would go and do. Or it's the part of the brain that is responsible for sensing danger, for judgment. That is how to act right in the face of whatever situation that you have. The part that is responsible for coordination, the part that is responsible for interpreting things properly, you know, is all in the brain. Now, it is the last part of the brain to be developed. And research has shown that for most people, it finally gets functionally mature at the age of 25.
Wow.
So therefore, for all our children who are not yet adults, that part of their brain is yet to be developed. That is why a child would see pornography, and even though you have told the child that this is bad, but he will still want to go there, because inhibition of impulses, processing information very well, it's not yet developed. Judgment is not yet fully developed. That is why if a child sees Superman jumping,
He wants to try.
He would want to jump too, because Superman is doing it. That is what will make a child watch people maybe kissing or doing something that is morally wrong on Africa Magic or whatever it is. I'm not condemning one particular station, but any, you know, thing like that, and would want to try it out, not thinking about the consequences. If I try it out, what is going to happen in the next 1 month, 2 months, you know, and things like that. So that part of the brain is not functionally developed. And so it is your responsibility as the parent to protect your children. I have seen parents who say, as long as I watch with them and I teach them. But the thing is that even when you teach them, you know, it's not as if they don't even fear the part of the brain that is making you think about, oh, consequences, hellfire, whatever. It's not fully developed. So they don't think about things in such terms, not because of any fault of theirs. So therefore, we need to be careful. What is it that we permit to come into our houses? How often do our children read, you know, what do they read, and how immersed are they in such things? And another very controversial issue is, when do we give them phones? You know, research has shown that if you give your child an Android phone, no matter the kind of parental lock you put on it, or link it to your phone or whatever, your child is going to be on social media within 1 year of getting an Android phone, whether you like it or not. That is what studies have shown us. So therefore, the question is, when do you give these children these devices? Because you give them these devices and you're actually destroying them. You know, I have seen young children. I met a girl in JS1 that was writing a suicide note. And when you know, her friend saw it and raised alarm, and the school authority brought her to the hospital. So when I interacted with her, and she already had planned how she was going to carry out that suicide. Where did she learn it? Movies that they were watching at home innocently. Now, this child is in JS1, perhaps 12 or 13 years old, or even younger, because of how we send our children to school. You know, so she saw these things. And as her brain, the way it's processing it is that, well, people, when they are under stress, they kill themselves. And this is one way of doing it. So right now, I don't like what is going on in this boarding house, so I will just kill myself. Without necessarily thinking through it. What she saw on TV gave her
ideas,
an idea about what to do. So you see, from that, you know that it is my duty as a parent to protect my child from these kinds of information for as long as I can. People might argue that if they go out, they will see these things. But the truth of the matter is, what your children develop interest in. I have watched my children see Z World and things in people's houses, and their attention is somewhere because they have developed interest in other things other than those kind of things. So when do you give your child a phone, for example? The truth is, we ask ourselves, do they really need it? You know, our children must not go through everything that we went through. But, you know, for someone like me, I'm sure you finished university, you didn't have a phone. For me, it was in my final year that I got a phone, and it was the phone that is just call and text. That was all that you could do, you know, with the phone. And the truth of the matter is, if the children don't have the phone, what will truly happen, you know, to them? I don't think anything bad will happen to them. People have learned, you know, in fact, I learned very recently that there is something they call dark web, where you cannot trace what is going there. That is where drug dealing happens. That is where whatever it is happens. These children know, and you know, they are more technologically savvy than we are. They teach them these things from primary school. So, you know, they know how to navigate through stuff. They can use a phone, and you would come and see no trace of what they did. And so, really, when you're giving your child a phone, I would not say a particular age, you know, it's at your discretion. But always remember that your child's frontal lobe is not fully developed until this child is 25 years old. So even at 18 that we're giving them the phone, of course, when the child is going to the university, we would give them the phone. They are not at home, they are adults, they need it to probably study and do things like that. But then even at that time, you're trusting God that God should help him. But then you're giving a child who is 9, who is 10, who is 12, who is 13.
Even you know, children in nursery schools.
I think one of the problems is that parents generally are using phones now as babysitters. You don't want them to disturb you, so you just give them phone, let them not disturb you. And it's very interesting that you see 2-year-olds, they know how to navigate this phone. When you give some, there are some I've seen, when their parents put children program for them, they'll be angry. That's not what they want. They want to go elsewhere. And they know what buttons to press to get them online, to know, go to YouTube and choose what they want. As small as there are people who can't even talk properly, they know where to go.
And I think one of the other things is we ourselves are guilty. If you want to curtail the use of phone in your children, or you want to deny them phone, then your abode should not be the phone. You know, we are at home and we are at the dining table and everybody is on his phone. The children are talking to you, you're on WhatsApp, you're on, you know, definitely they would also pressure you for that. So if you want to delay your children, you know, from getting on the phone and things like that, then we must also apply self-discipline to ourselves. We need to put checks on how long we are on the phone, how much we are on social media, how much we even talk about this stuff. You know, a lot of times we the parents we are more into the, you know, we are always on Facebook, always on. So they just imagine that that's where life is.
An exciting place to be, so they want to be there too.
Yeah, so if you check yourself, probably you can now explain to the child. And I think that if you can afford it, there are alternatives, you know, to giving your children Android phones. For example, I remember when my daughter was 12 or so and she started bugging me about phones, and I refused, and we kept going on and on about it. Then I discovered she loved to read, and one of the things that I did, because I could afford it, if you cannot afford it, there is no stress, you know, to that. But I bought her a Kindle. A Kindle is just a reading app where you know, they can have books, they can download books, they can have Wikipedia is there, so they can check-up
things.
information. But I did not give her Wi-Fi. So the only time she can connect to internet is when I am around. And then I registered the Kindle with my email. So if she's downloading any book, you know, I have to give an approval for it, you know, and things like that. So I think that calmed her down, you know, to be like, I have something else.
So she has a device.
You know, and the brother right now, he uses a Kindle. That's what he uses to, you know, read, check up stuff, you know, and things like that. But that is curtailed. So there is an alternative. There are other things to do. And you cannot deny your child a phone, for example, and then you are not available for the child. You don't play games, you don't play chess or whatever it is with the child. Definitely they will keep craving for the phone. So what I'm trying to say is we need to have alternatives for these children. Another very important thing about the television and things like that is when their children when their friends visit them, that's not the time to watch TV. You know, I do that a lot in my house. Young children come to my house, put off the TV, go and play. You came to you know, our children have lost the act of interaction. And that is what makes them not to be able to talk about their problems. You know, we now have adolescents who are in the university and maybe they failed a course or they are having challenges with their parents. They cannot even talk to their friends about it. They cannot tell anybody that I am struggling with my academics. This lecturer is sexually molesting me. Because
no skills.
As they were growing, we never gave them the chance to play. It was all about the phones, about the television, about the gadgets that we have in the home, the iPads and things like that.
No social interaction.
So there is no social skill. Our children cannot listen. They don't know how to listen. They don't know how to empathize. You know, social media is one very weird space,
fake space
where it gives you anonymity. You can say anything rude, anything, whatever, because nobody is seeing you. And so they take that out to the real world. They are afraid that people would be rude to them. They are afraid that people would not understand them. They are afraid that people would be unkind to them. So they cannot communicate. And so the slightest sign of distress anywhere, they are depressed, they get suicidal. So we should, from the time they are children, go and play. There should be time for television. In fact, research has shown that children less than 3 years, they don't even need any form of screen time at all. And when they are school age, 2-3 hours, you know, I give them more than 2-3 hours. But then there are days that TV is off, nothing happens. It's as you raise them, you know, that they get used to these things. So we need to cultivate the habit of allowing our children to even learn to communicate with one another. A lot of times, siblings cannot talk to one another. They are in the same university, they cannot talk to one another.
Because the parents themselves don't even talk to one another, and they don't talk with the children.
Yeah. So on this note, we'll be wrapping up. They say it's time. They are looking at me. So we need to wrap up. Anna, it means you're coming again next week. We have not finished. Sorry. Thank you. There's so much to talk about. So please, well, we'll be here again next week to still talk about how we can help our children with psychological issues, and then maybe we'll also sit a bit more on this issue of communication skills. Our children being able to be good listeners, good talkers, and good empathizers, to be reasonable human beings that they are supposed to be. So on this note, we will end today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Well, we didn't get any calls from you today, but we hope next week you'll call. But if you still have anything to say, please, on our social media handle, Facebook, please put it there and we'll address it when we come next time. Thank you so much, Mrs. Namo. Thank you so much, Dr. Giang. And thank you, viewers, for being here in the living room, Ekwa Television. We'll come again your way next week to continue discussing dealing with psychological issues in our children. God bless you. See you next week.
Propagating the gospel of salvation and helping people improve their way of life 24 hours daily is a zeal that has consumed us. Be aware that you can be part of this noble cause by supporting us. To be part of what God is using us to do, send your support to Equa Television Ministry 010 300 1024.